Hey there, EB here. Happy Friday. Looking forward to doing the Anything But Bland weekly update. It's been a good week, lots of things going on in Washington, around the country. NCAA tournament. Spring is here. The Masters is just around the corner. Looks like we're almost out of winter. We're, probably going to have a couple more sporadic cold days, but for the most part, it looks like spring's around the corner, pollen's in the air, happy time. I'm really watching to see how the Democrats are going to deal with what is going on in Washington. And I must tell you, uh, although people would say I'm a Democrat, I'm not. I have voted Democratic recently. All my life, I voted Republican up until Trump in 2016. On the state level, I vote Republican. But I'm really interesting to see um, how the Democrats are going to deal with what is happening in Washington. And it is by far the biggest disappointment I've ever seen. No one is willing to step up and take the mantle of leadership. Gavin Newsom is trying to pivot to the middle. He had Steve Bannon on his podcast, and they talked about Elon Musk. Gavin Newsom is not the answer. No one from California is the answer for the Democratic Party. Mainstream America, whether it's in Pennsylvania, South Carolina, Ohio, Michigan, they're not going to vote for any kind of California Democrat, even if that California Democrat tries to portray that they're a moderate. It's just not going to happen. Surprisingly, Trump was able to transform himself from a New Yorker into a conservative MAGA candidate, but that's because of the force of his personality. Ordinarily, anybody from New York wouldn't have won on a national level. You look at the leaders of the Democratic Party, and it's a joke. Chuck Schumer is absolutely a paper tiger. He has no power. He no longer has any respect. Whether he made the right decision or the wrong decision on the budget, he lost the consensus of um, his constituency in the Senate. The House Democrats don't respect him. Hakeem Jeffries, you don't hear about. Nancy Pelosi is too old. You heard her say something that was pretty poignant when she said, Chuck Schumer gave up everything and got nothing in return. She said she would never give up anything without getting anything in return. And when he capitulated on the continuing resolution for 6 months, it pretty much sowed the Democrats' fate. We're hearing a lot of talk about AOC and Bernie Sanders. If that is where the Democratic Party is going, let me explain what will be happening to them. They will be in oblivion. They will be in a desert. Um, Nobody in this country except hard left progressives, young people who are ultra liberal, want somebody like AOC being a leader of the Democratic Party. I'm seeing Tim Walz, former VP candidate for Kamala Harris, trying to take the mantle. He was a joke. He was not the right candidate. Bernie Sanders is too old, too liberal, and too much of a socialist. So he is not the answer. So who is the answer? The answer is Governor Shapiro from Pennsylvania, Mark Bashir, governor from Kentucky, or Wes Moore, who's the governor of Maryland, or somebody on the state level. But uh, to have Schumer uh, carry the mantle for the Democratic Party at his age is a joke. There is so much that is happening with Trump and Musk and the Republicans on a daily basis that it's going to take somebody that young people will listen to, and nobody's going to listen to a grandpa who wears Ben Franklin glasses. So, turning to the news, um, let's look at what's happening in Ukraine. Trump got played. Putin had a number of conversations with Trump. Uh, Zelensky agreed to a 30-day ceasefire where there would be no bombing on any energy production facilities or infrastructure. Trump went to Putin, and Putin said, "No, I'm not going to agree to that I will not negotiate until you stop funding Ukraine and stop providing them with weapons and providing them with intelligence." That is something that Trump, I don't think, will do. But Putin did say, "We will honor for 30 days not bombing infrastructure or energy facilities." And what did he do the next day? He bombed an energy facility and he bombed a hospital. And it really does look like that, you know, Putin it has the upper hand. He realizes that the more he continues to press for land, the more it's likely that Trump will make Zelensky capitulate. Yesterday, Trump announced that there probably was going to be a minerals agreement reached with Ukraine this week, which is huge. Um, you know, for months, Ukraine has used long range drones to strike Russia's oil refineries and pipelines, causing significant damage. Um, but uh, Zelensky agreed to pause this in order for Trump to see if he can make headway with Putin. I just don't think so. It's not because I don't think that Putin wants to do a deal with Trump. Putin is just not someone who could be trusted. He sent 145 drones the next day, which hit two energy stations and two hospitals. And so that is really a big problem. The next thing is the big issue is the planes that were sent to El Salvador with the TRN gangsters last Friday or Saturday. And the judge had granted an injunction, a district court judge who was originally um, put up by George Bush, but ultimately approved by Barack Obama. I guess his appointment didn't go through in time when Bush's term ended, but he was clearly put up by Bush. He put a 14-day pause based on the justification that the administration said it was using the Alien Enemies Act of 1798 as a basis to grab these TRN gang members off the street and deport them without any due process. So, just so everybody understands, the law even requires illegals to have some minimum due process. It's not the same due process that we have as citizens or that legal residents have, but they have to have some hearing. And all the judge said is that he wants to pause this for 14 days to have the legal issues briefed on whether that act applies. Now, the act has only been applied three times in history, last applied in World War II against Germans and Japanese and Italians during World War II. You clearly have to be at war, and Congress has to declare war. Now, there is some verbiage that follows that, which the Trump administration is focusing on, which deals with threats to our country. Look, let me be clear. I am all for these TRN guys, MS-13, any gangbangers being rounded up. And I mean round them up today. No warrants, whatever. Take them off the street. Lock them up. Put them in a deportation facility pending a hearing. They only get one hearing. Not all these appeals up to the Supreme Court. That's not what they're going to get. But they are entitled to that minimum amount of due process. And what has taken place is that Trump and the Republicans, Stephen Miller and Elon Musk. Elon Musk has funded some of the House members who said that this judge should be impeached. Judges should not be impeached for interpreting decisions and making decisions. That's what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to interpret law and make decisions. And we don't impeach judges for that. In fact, this is now the second time that Chief Justice Roberts has spoken out about it. In 2018, when There were some threats on some district court judges. Chief Roberts spoke out, and this time he said there are not Obama judges in 2018. There aren't Trump judges. There aren't Republican judges. There aren't Democratic judges. They're just judges who are appointed and approved by the Senate. Um, a lot of people in the House are calling for impeachment of judges who rule against Trump's policies. I think that's a dangerous, slippery slope that we're going down. You can't just like a judge when he rules in your favor, and then when he rules against you, call for their impeachment. Um, and Chief Justice Roberts came out definitively and said that we are not going to be impeaching judges for making routine, ordinary decisions, especially when this judge could change his mind after the 14-day injunction and rule in favor of the Republicans. What would happen then? The judge is holding contempt hearings right now because, despite what he had said, that the plane should turn around, the two planes, even after he gave his order, a third plane was released where they sent these supposed gangbangers to El Salvador to this prison, which we're going to talk about in a second, I think is the coolest thing in the world. Um, he Judge had asked for a list of people from the attorney general on who was on that plane, and the attorney general wouldn't provide the list. So we're heading to a showdown between the executive branch, Justice Department, and the court system, with either following orders or not providing all information. Um, these prisoners are going to El Salvador to this prison that is the most extraordinary thing I've ever seen. It's 8 different facilities that are football fields long. They're tiered bunks without any mattresses. They're metal, no blankets, no pillows. 80 to a cell, one toilet. They get beans and rice 3 times a day, and they have to ladle their water. They wear white t-shirts, white shorts. They're the worst of the worst. 23 hours a day they're in their cell, and these are high maximum security prisons. They make them walk bent over. They have to sit on the ground, Indians crisscross applesauce with their hands behind their head, facing down. It's a pretty big thing. Also, this week, the judge blocked Trump and Musk's dismantling of the USAID in a blow to the crown jewel of the Doge cuts. Judge held that Trump is trying to circumvent the appointment clause, which the appointment clause says that once Congress allocates and appoints funds, they have to go where Congress says that they're going to go. And let's talk about Elon Musk for a second. He is not a U.S. Born resident, so he can never be a federal office holder. He was not approved by the Senate. He's not a permanent government employee. He doesn't have clearance. He clearly has conflicting interests with the government because of his contracts that he have with the United States government. And half of the Tesla cars are manufactured in China. So he has conflicting relationships with China. We know how he feels about South Africa and how the anti-apartheid movement has as he said, taken over and hurt white farmers. Elon Musk today met with the Department of Defense and was supposedly given some access to U.S. plans with China, whether they were war plans. They didn't meet in the tank room in the Pentagon, but I don't understand why Elon Musk is getting information about China, especially when he has business interests with China. Yes, the man's tech savvy. Yes, the man's the richest man in the world. Yes, he has a rocket ship company, and his rocket ship thankfully brought back those 2 astronauts who have been stuck up there for 9 months. And but the fact that he is given access to all these different agencies. In fact, this week, another judge shut him down and said to the Social Security Administration, no, Do not turn over the Social Security numbers and private information to Elon Musk. Um, Look, they're taking a wrecking ball to government. I totally agree that the government needs stents. May need a new aortic valve, but it doesn't need a new heart. You know, um, we, not everybody is a fat cat bureaucrat. There are people that perform real good functions. Look, I totally agree with the concept of getting rid of the Department of Education, but not its services. Its vital services for Title I to provide funding for underprivileged kids, both in urban areas and in rural areas, to make sure they get a maximum education, as well as disability funds. Look, now today, Trump is going to turn some of the funding for the Pell Grants over to the SBA, Small Business Administration. Kelly Loeffler is the head of that. He used to be a senator from Georgia. Look, these are people who are running these agencies. Linda McMahon, Department of Education, Kelly Loeffler. They're billionaires. Their kids aren't going to need student loans. And turning over Pell Grants to the SBA and then funding for Title I and disability to the HHS to Bobby Kennedy. Bobby Kennedy's never run a department. Bobby Kennedy's never run a company. Bobby Kennedy's never hired and fired people. Um, Whether you like these educators or not, they're people who know how to implement the funding that is appropriated by Congress for these programs, and sending them over to the SBA and the HHS, who has no historical knowledge, will only delay these kids for getting funds to go to college in the fall and get their education and get the supplementary tutoring that's necessary for kids that are with disabilities. So, what I'm asking is yes, we should do these cuts. Yes, government should be trimmed. But let's study it. Let's decide where it's most efficient to do that. Just because you can take a wrecking ball to somebody and knock down a building doesn't mean you should knock down the entire building. Maybe you only knock down the rear porch or you knock down the garage. There's now 166 lawsuits that the administration is now mired down in connection with Trump's executive orders. They've lost over 120 of those lawsuits on a temporary basis so far. So their batting average is less than 20%. Um, so, you know, Elon Musk built his brand on Tesla based on his individual brand, that he's this brilliant tech guy. Um, Now that he is coming across as being a dark figure, somebody who is callous, somebody who is, cutting for cutting's sake. His image is suffering and suffering bad, which is causing Tesla to suffer a bad image. He was selling cars to like-minded people. When he started Tesla, it was I'm going to sell them to tech people. I'm going to send them to highly educated people in um, blue states. Now, all of a sudden, he's a pariah to the Democratic Party and to the liberal elites. They're not buying his cars. His technology is outdated. The batteries are being outperformed now by Chinese battery manufacturers, and they're widening that gap. 66,000 Tesla trucks were called back because on a recall because doors could fall off. So um, I think that Elon Musk, uh, somebody should be bringing a class action against him because he owes duties to the shareholders of Tesla, not to hurt their stock value. And everything he's done since the election has hurt the stock value, whether it's supporting the AFD or the ADF in Germany, the conservatives, whether he's supporting South Africans and he's given the supposedly the Hitler sign, coming out with the chainsaw, wearing all black. All that's doing is hurting the value of the stock of Tesla and hurting his brand. Um, so Tom Homan, the border czar, he said that he doesn't care what judges say. He's not going to give them these people due process. He's going to fly every day. Again, let me be clear. I am so happy that these miscreants and criminals and thugs are being rounded up. I'm not talking about the normal illegally immigrants that are coming over that want jobs. These are people that are coming over to create trouble, to steal, to steal from athletes, to sell fentanyl, to intimidate people. That is really the problem. Earlier this week, Trump said that he's going to try to overturn all of Biden's pardons that he gave to the January 6th uh, committee people on Congress and then to his family members because he signed the pardons with an auto pen. Turns out that Trump uses an auto pen as well to sign his name. And there was an opinion by the White House counsel in 2005 during the Bush era, a Republican era, that presidents who sign with an auto pen, it is a valid signature. So I think that's a real problem. Again, it's full of sound and fury. Sounds good coming out of his mouth, but it really signifies nothing. Um, uh, DOJ and some of the federal departments remove the requirement from federal contracts that there be no segregation or equal opportunity in the contracts. I mean, that's a telltale sign that they're not going to adhere to the Civil Rights Act of the 60s and 1974, where you cannot have discrimination in government contracting. That just seems appalling to me. Trump fired two FTC commissioners who were on a bipartisan committee. That's not a political committee. The Supreme Court has already ruled on this that you can't fire them unless it was for cause. Um, what the military did this week at the Pentagon by taking down Jackie Robinson's biography, by taking down Holocaust remembrance and suicide preventions for veterans and preventing sexual assault against females in the military is disgraceful. They view that as DEI, and they took 24,000 pages off of different sections of the website. Um, you know, trying to give Elon Musk clearance to decide, okay, well, who do we cut with Social Security? Look, if he wants to put a new program in place that ferrets out where payments should go, that's fine. But these people on Doge have to be vetted, and they have to be given security clearance. They have to go through the congressional vetting process. Um, I think I thought I saw it all when I saw Trump hawking Tesla vehicles on the White House lawn a week and a half ago. It was stunning to me, but nothing reached that until I saw the Secretary of Commerce, Howard Luskin, um, hawking Tesla stock on Fox Business News, saying that it's the greatest buy and that everybody should be investing their money in Tesla stock. Talk about crossing lines and having a conflict of interest. Um, Here's the actual facts. Trump is lagging behind Biden in the month of February on deportations. Actually, Biden did more. Now, that's a little bit skewed because it's true that much more illegals come in the country. Since Trump has become president and took inauguration, there's been a lot less people coming across the border, which is a good thing, coming across illegally. So let's talk about that. Doge, if they do all these cuts again, will be a 3% saving on the national budget. And if we don't do anything on Social Security, if we don't do a means testing that billionaires don't need Social Security like Elon Musk or Linda McMahon, um, and we give these tax cuts to the billionaires that Trump wants to give, these major tax cuts and extend the tax cuts from 2017, then all of these cuts will be for naught and we will be over budget. Um, Trump's purge of federal workers threatens environmental scientific studies in South Carolina. Um, you know, we have people who study toxic and forever chemicals and how they affect tidal creeks in South Carolina. And because we have a big fishing population. And so we do a lot of studies and research to make sure that we could bring these anglers to our state. When they're cutting that funding, that's going to be the problem. Um, Happy that Trump blew apart the Houthis and in Yemen, who are blocking the Red Sea, and the pirates. They use cheap drones. Trump said he's going to unleash the might of the military. Go at it. You know, these people are interrupting the shipping routes. Mow the grass with these people. You got to do it periodically. You got to mow the grass. Um, he Iran can't control um, the Houthis like they can Hezbollah. So I think it's up to Trump. I'm happy, totally agree with him that he's going to repeatedly bomb the Houthis to prevent the straits over in Iran and the Middle East to have free shipping zones. Um, Last week, China committed billions and billions of dollars to lead the world in AI, while America is cutting funding to all these research at universities. Um, Mao Zedong did this in the early 1900s and in China, and it took generations for China to get back to where it is in its research. So cutting research for research sake and cutting sake isn't really the answer. John Kennedy said that serving in public service is a noble service. Let's not forget that. A lot of public servants make our lives better. Um, they do things that the free market won't do. Um, for me, I want to stand up for the rule of law. When judges make orders, they need to be followed. And if you don't like it, you appeal it up. South Carolina has scheduled its fifth execution in 7 months next Tuesday. And this week, Louisiana decided it's going to be the first state to use nitrogen in an execution. So that's interesting. Um, the NCAA tournament is underway. We got St. John's going to play Arkansas in the second round. Pitt's John Calipari against Rick Pitino, two legendary college coaches. We have Cooper Flagg for Duke, who's going to come back. Played today. Clemson got upset by McNeese State. We've had some neat upsets so far. No real buzzer beaters. Um, Earlier this week, Elon Musk made an unannounced visit to the NSA. Again, I'm asking, are you kidding me? He doesn't have any national security clearance. I also learned that we canceled Radio Free Europe and Voice of America and all these other things that we have to promote democratic ideas all over the world. This was vitally important to President Reagan. In fact, under his uh, um, 2 terms, he expanded Radio Free Europe and the Voice of America because he wanted the world to be saturated by democracy and American ideals of freedom and liberty, and that it does soak in so that people say in these other despot countries that, hey, America is a place I want to go to. Um, Kash Patel wants a direct, secure line from the FBI to the Oval Office so that none of his phone calls or that of the president will be recorded and bypassing any. That is something that has never happened in the history of our country. So we will see how that happens. He wants private security to protect him and doesn't want FBI security detail. I don't think that's going to endear him too well. Um, Jackie Robinson was temporarily removed from the military and then restored. Um, you can't change history for purposes of DEI. 5,000 women serve in our infantry today. There are over 500 officers in the Army. There are 200 who are women. There are 250 women who are airborne rangers. Um, you can't erase inspiration, inspiration for a lot of women and a lot of minorities who want to join the military. They're they're banning books. They took down pictures in the military of Harriet Tubman and Michelle Obama. Um, these are people that our kids look up to. Um, you know, purging things off books from the libraries and from websites is censorship. It's something censorship that we fight so hard for. So the other thing is Kanye West again spewed hate this week and anti-Semitism with his disturbing casting call. He asked that if you're going to come in, you got to be comfortable wearing swastikas. He had a big fight that he started with Beyonce and her husband this week, even though that her Beyonce's husband um, was responsible for Kanye West, some of his stardom. The University of Pittsburgh student, the Indian student who disappeared in the Dominican Republic, smells like the situation we had in Aruba a couple years ago with Jordan Vandersloot. I don't know where that's going to go. In the last week, Junior Bridgman died. He played for Louisville in college. He played with uh, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Lou Alcindor, and Oscar Robertson for the Milwaukee Bucks. Had a 12-year NBA career. He died at 71. But what was interesting, I never knew this. He died as a billionaire. He owned over 100 Wendy's and Applebee's. John Feinstein, who was a famous author about A Good Walk Spoiled, about wrote a lot about golf and basketball. He died this week. Um, Rory McIlroy won the TPC. He's now has 2 wins before the Masters. He's only done that, I think, one other time in his career. Colin Morikawa is really hurting his image. He refused to talk to the press when he blew a victory the week before the TPC. Fran McCaffery, after 15 years, was fired as the Iowa basketball coach, uh, one of the best foul mouth coaches ever. Um, uh, he just, the portal's killing him and he's losing all his players. He's a dinosaur. Um, the Villanova coach, Kyle Neptunic, who took over for Jay Wright, got fired. Minnesota decided it's going to go with J.J. McCarthy and not go with Aaron Rodgers. That means that Aaron Rodgers was visiting the Pittsburgh Steelers today. Um, again, Rory has a good shot at the Masters. Scheffler has not won. Spieth, uh, Thomas, and Ricky Fowler um, are nowhere to be found. Um, the live players with the live tour, Brooks Koepka, he wants to come back to the PGA Tour. His 3-year deal is up with the live tour, so he wants out. Sad Tiger Woods ruptured his Achilles tendon and had to get a surgery, and he's dating Donald Trump Jr.'s ex-wife. So that is it for the weekly update. Debbie Demeter said, "What's your thoughts on the Democratic Party in Congress and their inaction on all these issues affecting our country?" I said that I think the Democratic Party is getting everything they deserve. They're rudderless, they're leaderless. Chuck Schumer's a waste. I don't think Hakeem Jeffries is doing a good job as the minority leader of the House. I think we need new blood. I like Elise Stefanik in the Senate, and we need some Democratic people in the House that are middle of the road people. We don't need AOC. We don't need Bernie Sanders. But uh, other than just screaming loud, they have to do something. Obviously, these um, town hall meetings are uh, becoming very difficult for the congressmen to hear, either from their own party or the opposing party, and they're canceling them. Nancy Mace, for instance, canceled her own town hall and will not be having any. And so that's it. And we did file a lawsuit against Nancy Mace last week, as we said we would follow through and do if she didn't print a retraction and apologize to Brian Musgrave. So we'll see how that works out in the courts. So watch NCAA basketball, enjoy your family, and get outside this week. Thanks a lot, guys. EB out.